The muscular system. So the learning objectives are locate and understand the role of following muscles: latissimus dorsi, trapezius, deltoid, pectorals, biceps, triceps, abdominals, gluteals, hip flexors, the hamstring group, the quadriceps group, the gastrocnemius, and the tibialis anterior. And we also get to understand the role of a tendon, the actions of agonist and antagonist, how the muscles or muscles group work using isotonic and isometric contractions, and thirdly, to differentiate between muscle fiber types, that is slow and fast twitch, with reference to physical activities, which will be limited to the force created, fatigue tolerance, and the aerobic and anaerobic energy supply. So the muscular system is mainly concerned with producing movement through muscle contraction. This session explores the different types of muscles in our body and their involvement in different sporting activities. There are mainly three types of muscle in the body. Namely, first one is smooth muscle, which is found in the internal organs and blood vessels, and these are involuntary. Second type, you have the cardiac muscle, which is found only in the heart, and again this is involuntary. And finally, the skeletal muscle, which are attached to the skeleton and which are voluntary. Now let's have a look at the main muscles of the human body. The deltoid, found on the upper part of the shoulder. The biceps, muscles found on the front of the upper part of your arm. The abdominals, found at the abdomen region. The quadriceps, which is a group of muscles which is found on the front of the upper part of your leg. Tibialis anterior, found on the front of the lower part of your leg. The trapezius, which is a big muscles, which is partly you can see on the front and at the back. The name trapezius comes from the word trapezium because of the shape of the muscle. We have the pectorals, which are on the chest region. The triceps, opposite of the biceps, which are found at the back of your upper arm. Latissimus dorsi, the muscles found at the back. Okay, big muscles. You have the gluteals, which is found in the posteriors. The hamstring, a group of muscles found at the back of the upper part of your leg. And finally, the gastrocnemius, which is found on the back of your lower leg. So let's now have a look at the involuntary and involuntary muscles. So involuntary muscles are not under our conscious control, which means we can't make them contract when we think about it. So we are independent of our control. On the other hand, we have voluntary muscles who are under our conscious control, so we can make them move. These are the muscles we use to make all the movement needed in physical activity and sports. So as we have seen earlier, voluntary muscles make the body move. They are attached to the skeleton and can be controlled. Voluntary muscles have fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. Fast twitch fibers contract quickly but do not use oxygen well and tire quickly, whereas slow twitch fibers contract slowly but use oxygen well and keep going for a long time. So if we see at these two types of muscle fibers, we'll see that top sprinters have more fast twitch fibers, okay, because we have to do very quick movement, and these fibers we can contract very quickly. On the other hand, we have endurance athletes. For example, you have the marathon runners, the cross-country runners, and these athletes we tend to have more slow twitch fibers. So now let's have a look at the characteristic of these two types of muscle fibers. So in terms of force production, in slow twitch fiber it's low, in fast twitch it's high. In contraction speed, the slow twitch is slow and fast twitch is fast. Fatigue tolerance, that is what we call endurance. Slow twitch is very high and in fast twitch is low. The aerobic energy supply in slow twitch, yes. Okay, to use aerobic means oxygen, and fast twitch no. Whereas anaerobic energy supply in slow twitch no, and in fast twitch yes. Muscles contraction. Muscles contraction can be divided into firstly isotonic, which means having the same tension, and secondly isometric, meaning same distance or means not moving. Isotonic contractions. Isotonic contractions are those which cause the muscle to change length as it contracts and causes movement of a body part. There are two types of isotonic contraction. So is the concentric contractions. So these are the contractions which cause the muscle to shorten as it contracts. Example is the bending of the elbow from straight to fully flexed, causing a concentric contraction of the biceps muscles. So we can see in the diagram, as the muscles shorten, that is it contract, this is called a concentric contraction. On the other hand, we have eccentric contractions, which are the opposite of the concentric contractions, and they occur when the muscle lengthens as it contracts. So we can see in the diagram above the muscles lengthening, that is eccentric contraction. Another example is when kicking a football. The quadriceps muscle contracts concentrically to strengthen the knee, and the hamstrings contract eccentrically to decelerate the motion of the lower limb. Isometric contractions. Isometric contractions occur when there is no change in the length of the contracting muscle. Example is the plank. Another example is when you grip something, for example, a tennis racket. So now let's have a look at the different muscles and their function with an example in sport. For this slide, I won't go in details on all of these muscles. Of course, you can read through them. So I will just take 2-3 examples. So first one, the deltoid muscle, which is found on the upper side of your shoulder. The function is lifting the arm at the shoulder. An example in the sport is lifting the arms to block in volleyball. Another example, the biceps, which is used for flexion of the elbow, that is bending the arm. And in a sport, we can find it in archery, whereby you draw your elbow, or else in a tennis serve, what we call the back scratch position. Another example I take, the quadriceps muscles, group of muscles, which are found on the front of your upper leg. So these muscles, they are used for the extension of the knee, that is straightening the leg. And in a sport, example, you can have kicking a football. Okay, the execution and recovery phase. And another example I take, the gastrocnemius muscle, which is found on the back of your lower leg, and the function is plantar flexion of the ankle, that is the toes pointing downwards. An example in sport, when you do a gymnastic move or dance move, whereby your toes are pointing downwards, or standing on tiptoe to mark a shot in netball. Agonist and antagonist muscle pairs. Muscles are attached to bones by tendons. Muscles contract to move our bones by pulling on them. However, muscles can only pull, they cannot push. This is why they usually work adjoint in pairs. One muscle of a pair contracts to move a body part, the other muscle in the pair then contracts to return the body part back to its original position. Muscles that work like this are called antagonist pairs. In an antagonist muscle pair, as one muscle contracts, the other muscle relaxes or lengthens. The muscle that is contracting is called the agonist, and the muscle that is relaxing or lengthening is called the antagonist. So let's have a look at this diagram. We can see the muscle doing the movement is the agonist, and the muscle which is on the opposite is the antagonist. So let's have a look at the diagram to be more explicit about the explanation. For example, when you perform a bicep curl, the biceps will be the agonist as it contracts to produce the movement, while the triceps will be the antagonist as it relaxes to allow the movement to occur. So these two diagrams demonstrate what we have been talking about. Now let's have a look at the origin and insertion of the muscles. The origin is the end of a muscle which is attached to a fixed bone. The insertion is the end of a muscle that is attached to the bone which moves. We will now have a look at some antagonistic muscle pairs. So for the sake of the slide, I will take one example, the elbow joint, and the pairs, the agonistic pairs, you have the biceps and the triceps, and the movement which can be produced, flexion and extension. And one example in sport is chest pass in basketball or even a badminton smash. Similarly, we have other joints which you can go through, and so you will know about the antagonistic muscle pairs. To allow antagonistic pairs to work efficiently, other muscles called fixators assist by supporting and stabilizing the joint and the rest of the body. The trapezius muscle can act as a fixator when the biceps is flexing the elbow joint. Similarly, the abdominals can act as fixators to stabilize the body for hip and knee movements. So we have a look at one example in sports, for example, a kicking in football, whereby we have antagonistic muscle pairs in action. So for this skill, we will look at the preparation, execution, and recovery phase. So in the preparation phase, when a footballer prepares to kick a football, the hamstrings contract to flex the knee, while the quadriceps lengthen to allow the movement. The hamstrings are the agonist and the quadriceps are the antagonist. In the contact and recovery phase, the quadriceps contract to extend the knee, while the hamstrings lengthen to allow the movement. The quadriceps are the agonist and the hamstrings are now the antagonist. So in this case, the abdominals would be acting as fixators. So let's have a look at this question. We have a diagram whereby a person is doing a press up. So describe how the antagonistic muscle pairs are working at the elbow during the downwards and upwards phase of a press up. So you have to analyze the movement which is done at the elbow. Were you able to do it? Okay, so let's look at the answer. So during the downwards phase, the biceps are the agonist and they contract eccentrically to control the flexion of the elbow. So the body is lowered under control down towards the floor. The triceps are the antagonist. And during the upwards phase, the triceps are now the agonist and contract concentrically to extend the elbow. And now the biceps will become the antagonist. So we have a revision test questions for you on this topic we have been studying. So we have a set of 10 questions. So let's see questions for you. So if you can work these out. Which of these muscles types are found in the heart? So you have to choose one of them. Which of the following muscle types is under conscious control? Which of the following skeletal muscles is found on the back of the calf? Question number 4. Which muscle group is responsible for the flexion at the knee when a footballer prepares to kick a football? Number 5. When a player shoots at the goal in netball, the gastrocnemius contracts to produce which movement at the ankle? We now see question 6. Which muscle group acts as a fixator at the shoulder to stabilize the joint during movement? During movement, what action is being taken by the antagonist? Which muscle operates as the antagonistic pair in combination with the latissimus dorsi? Number 9. Which of these is not a term given to a muscle when movement is occurring? And finally, question number 10. Which structure connects muscle to bone and allows force to be transmitted from the muscle to move the skeleton? So here are these 10 questions which you can attempt on your own. So if you are finished, you can check the answers. So here are the answers to these questions. So thank you very much for your attention. We hope you had a nice session with us on the muscular system. So for more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.